What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, Radio Foot here, and we're back with episode 23 of my video game therapy series. Yeah, don't really have any other introductory messages other than let's get into the stuff. Let's get into the abstract ideas. I don't know whether it's a problem that I am... I realize this is just symptomatic of the whole premise of this entire series, but I don't know whether it becomes problematic if I am constantly thinking in such abstract terms, right? I think the worst application is just that you can sometimes just not want to do anything. Everything seems kind of pointless if you always look at it in this supreme abstract sense. So I suppose as long as I'm able to kind of get my day-to-day, concrete, totally non-abstract things done in a way that's not being impeded by my abstract or existential, questioning, then it doesn't really matter, right? I can be as abstract as I want, but I think the issue might arise if I am always sitting here thinking about abstract stuff and then I'm not actually ever doing anything concrete, or I just don't see any point in doing anything. It's not, because there's ultimately no point in me even thinking and discussing abstract ideas. There's really no point to anything. So it's kind of hard to have to justify everything you do. Some things you just have to do just because it sucks. It's like working like a job that's below you, or like a summer job that like sucks ass. So I was a lifeguard for a certain portion of my earlier days, and it's like, okay, you've realized that this is below you. You just kind of have to do it. I'm not saying I have to apply that for everything, because it's like, well, this job is below me because it's not this, abstract, this whatever thing. Really, everything can fall into that category. So it's not really, you don't have to justify everything. Some things you have to do that just sucks, that you don't want to do, that you just kind of have to, as a way to participate in life. Otherwise, you're not really an actor in your life. So I don't know, whatever. I'm not gonna get too deep into that shit. Anyway, yeah, I don't really consume that much media stuff, but I'll talk to my mom, and she listens to podcasts about God knows what. And I don't know if other people get this sentiment, but this is just something that I've kind of recognized. It seems as if nothing is sacred anymore. I don't mean that in the sense that there's hallowed or things that we should be protecting as a species or a society or whatever. I'm just thinking in terms of, there's a problem with everything, right? There's like, 10 reasons why, drinking a cup of coffee a day is going to kill you or something. And, you can point out some, dubious research or some arguably correct ideas that support their claim, and it might want you to stir some action. I think the point of it is not to make less people drink coffee, or coffee is a bad example because I'm not up to date on what the most recent BuzzFeed article says about it or whatever. But like, I don't know, something like chocolate or something. I guess food is an easy way to think of it, where it's like all these foods that you think are healthy are ruining. It's like why fruit is secretly not healthy for you or something. And then it's like, okay, well, now no one's supposed to eat fruit. I think the point of it is to not be actionable. It's just something for you to read and kind of think about. But by default, especially if it's something to do with like, not eating fruit, it kind of lends itself to being something that you want to take action of. Oh, I should stop eating fruit or something because it's bad. And obviously I'm not supporting that fruit is bad. I'm just saying there's probably some article that says modern fruits are too sweet, and it's kind of making you hungrier for more sugar, and so then you end up eating more actual sugar or something. I mean, there's a problem with everything, right? why this meditation style is bad for you and can cause this person to be a schizophrenic. I realize that the point of it is just to get you to kind of click on it and to listen to it or whatever. And I don't participate in that as much as I'm able. But I feel like I hear enough of it through the grapevine. So like I said, I talked to my mom, and she'll say, I listened to a podcast where they said that, I don't know, some ridiculous take. Again, I'll use the fruit bad example. Oh, fruit's bad for you. Everyone should stop eating fruit. It's like, okay, what? Like, I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert on any of this. And even if I was, I feel like, what? The point isn't to everything. There's something wrong with everything. Life, I think, in essence, is all about sacrifices, right? So one thing that I will say, fine, probably is bad. Let's say, this is my take on it. Artificial sweeteners, okay? I'm not saying aspartame. I'm saying like let's assume it's a natural, like, corn-based or some whatever starch-based artificial sweetener that is, generally they're more potent than sugar, so they're 10 times sweeter than sugar or something, but you lack the physiological effects that sugar has on your body. So it doesn't spike your insulin, whatever, right? Yeah, the problem with that is that you crave more sugar later, so you end up eating actual sugar, and since it's sweeter, it actually has a stronger craving effect than actual sugar does. And, it's okay, fine, so I should stop eating artificial sweeteners. And then it's like, okay, well then, there's the balance between eating something that's artificially sweetened or something that has real sugar. It's okay, well, if you're going to have to eat one, assuming you have to, I guess, in this hypothetical, which one's worse? And it's okay, well, there's trade-offs with everything. So I feel like it's such a losing game to decide to totally swear off everything and to something like, I'm never going to eat sugar or artificial sweeteners ever again because they're all bad, and a lot of it's hyper sensationalized. It's not going to kill you. Fruit's not going to kill you. Coffee's not going to kill you. Chocolate's not going to kill you. Yeah, 40,000 pounds of it, every morning when you wake up, if you're hooked up to an IV or something with it, yeah, it's probably going to kill you. Everything will kill you, right? It's like there's never a line where it's somebody having a sensible response to anything like this. Like, oh, maybe I should, maybe I'll try a small conscious effort to maybe have one less sugar in my coffee or something, or artificial sweetener. Okay, that's fine. But then, like, you have these people that, in order to get the attention of people online, have to make these ridiculous claims, which ultimately are passed on by people. So, right, my mom reads this article where this person, put an extra thing of sugar in their coffee, and all of a sudden they, strapped a bomb to their chest. It's never a sensible message with, a sensible conclusion. It's always something ridiculous. And like I said, I'm not normally the one not reading anything like that because I would just dismiss it outright. But if I'm talking to a friend or my mom who's read this kind of messaging and has in some way bought into at least part of their take, right? They wouldn't sound so outlandish if there wasn't some element of truth with it. And there's probably a small element of truth with it that, there's some, psychological effect and could be dangerous or something. But the response is generally so inflated that any benefit you would have gotten, you're going to go in the opposite direction of. So it becomes just this ridiculous clusterfuck game of telephone where you have this already kind of skewed message and this, kind of dubious backing, fixed with this sensationalist writing that ends up crafting this narrative that is, causes people to panic that, they had a bar of dark chocolate and all of a sudden they're going to go crazy. And I'm just picking kind of ridiculous examples. Foods and psychological connections are just is whatever vein I stuck onto for this example. So this really applies to anything. This could be some kind of political take or some social trend or something that's going on that people are following, and ultimately whatever Vice articles being written on it is journalism has just kind of fallen. That's kind of my ultimate point with this, is that I think generally people are seeing this too, is that the faith in true, kind of modest, unbiased journalism is falling. And I don't know, just because it kind of has to, right? Especially if your job is to try and get engagement with information, no one wants to hear this like normal ass message, right? That's like, oh, maybe you should go outside for a little bit, and I don't know, try to eat a balanced breakfast. It's like, no. Every morning, suck on the pit of an avocado and you will fly. It's like, no. Okay, like, this message is ridiculous. But you're ultimately going to get more clicks if you have some ridiculous, I guess it kind of filters back to this clickbaity type shit, which I just have so many problems with. But it's hard, I guess, then as a journalist. Do you subscribe to, I'm going to be reasonable and do what's right, I guess, whatever that means, and be kind of this normal, reasonable journalist, or am I going to be the best at my job? And people are going to, my audience is going to skyrocket because I have said these outlandish things that are entertaining and interesting to read. So I think either the solution is to no longer take things at face value and make them actionable. So just kind of read things with this, like, even the mentality that it's not genuine entirely, which is hard to ask of a public to do, or to try and get journalists to sacrifice a paycheck for doing a better job. Which it sounds counterintuitive, but ultimately that's how their compensation is determined, really. So it's not like who are you supposed to fault there, I guess. You can blame anyone for that, and so I don't know. It's I don't even know what the hell I was talking about to get this started, but that's just a side I thought. It's difficult to hold these conversations with these sensationalized messages, and then like, oh, what do you think about this? It's like, well, I think if you're panicking, there's probably no reason to panic over any of this, regardless of whatever it is. So whatever's going on, where the hell is I don't know where I'm going. Regardless of whatever the message is, there's normally no need to panic ever. That's kind of a rule of thumb you can subscribe to by default. And then, I guess have nuance with it. But again, you're asking this huge audience, the American public, to be nuanced and understanding in their decision making. That's not realistic. And I think some people kind of believe, I guess this kind of brings into my next point, a belief in like the innate good or the innate, best practice of human beings, as if there's kind of a default or a baseline goodness or intelligence or critical thinking that people have. And I think people tend to vary wildly on what they expect from your average human, your average American, your average person. And I generally would tend to err on the side that my expectations are probably much lower than maybe other people's, but I think it's foolish if you have this high standard for like intelligent decision making or understanding on behalf of people, right? I think it's better to assume that people are inherently stupid than otherwise, and are inherently going to make the right decisions versus the worst decisions. And I think maybe you could chalk it down to like a 64 or 60-20-20 split, where maybe you have 60% that are sensible, that make normal decisions that wouldn't be questioned by that many. You have 20% that are maybe on the better end of things, where they're making better decisions than normal. And again, I'm just kind of picking random numbers here, but you could pick your own numbers depending on what narrative you want to fill. You have 20% that are making are your masterminds that are making the right decisions that are going to help you move forward or whatever, the smart ones, I guess, if you want to call it that. And then you kind of have these 20% that are just out to ruin everything, the trolls, the people that are just too stupid to realize what they're doing is the opposite of what they want. And it kind of comes down, you think people will know what's in their best interest and pursue what's in their best interest and make the right decisions that lead to their best interest. But I think that's generally not I don't see that as a universal law. I think more often than not they don't know what's in their. They don't even. Not only do they not know what's in their best interest, they have an inability to act towards their best interest. Act properly, at least, towards their best interest, because they just lack the. I mean, I don't know. It just depends on what kind of expectations you have for people, and mine tend to be a lot lower. So, sorry, I don't know. That's what I mean. Anyway, it's hard to, it feels like there's social consequence to pretty much everything. So regardless of what you do, you're going to be wrong. So if you eat a bar of chocolate in the morning, it's going to kill you. And if you don't eat a bar of chocolate in the morning, you're going to get heart disease or lung disease either way. You know what I mean? Like, it's like making up these ridiculous narratives where it's no matter what you do, you're always wrong, right? So do you go to the movies to watch a favorite movie because you want to give yourself time to enjoy it? Or it's like, no, you're supporting some racist actor or something. It's like, okay, well then there's consequence to everything. There's not anything you can do that's completely free of, where the fuck is my entrance? That's completely free of consequence. Like, no matter what, you're in some way insinuating support for something, maybe something terrible somebody did, whatever. And by, going to the movies to watch, your favorite movie, you're supporting a bad actor or something. I don't know. I feel like that's a very apt social example where, there's, no matter what you do, you're wrong, right? It's like, it's a lose-lose situation. That's kind of come up more often than I feel it is necessary. And it just comes into reading too much into things. Maybe it's because people are bored and just have less to worry about, so they have to kind of make up their own problems. I've kind of talked about that before, where people just kind of invent these problems to deal with because they're bored and their lives aren't that hard comparatively. So instead of kind of, an inability to sit down and think and, what problems are going on, right? You don't even ask that problem. You don't even ask that question, right? You're too busy doing other shit to conjure up these problems. And so I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a sign that prosperity is growing, that we're becoming more prosperous. I mean, I have a hard time. I mean, I guess that's true in some ways, but at the same time, it would indicate a drop in critical thinking function, that they're not self-aware enough to realize that these problems are made up. I don't know. I'm not saying all the problems that people come up with this are made up. That's kind of a problem in itself, I guess. But I don't know. Anyway, it's just like, no matter what you do, someone's going to be mad at you for it. It's like the ref. Like, everyone hates the ref. It doesn't matter what the ref calls. The ref could call nothing. Then the ref sucks because he blew the call, or he missed the call or whatever. And then, the ref could call the foul, and then the one team's mad. It doesn't matter. Like, you're the referee. No matter what you do, everyone hates you, and everyone's going to scream because everyone's kid is the best player there. So no matter what, fuck you. Like, you're the worst ref ever. You're the worst ref ever. Doesn't matter what you do. And so you can either choose to, like, suck up and just, okay, I'm going to just call everything for the blue team. I'm at least going to have half the people like me. And that's like I don't know, that seems like a pretty reasonable solution, I guess, if you just want half the audience to like you. Versus if you try to call a fair game, everyone's going to hate you. Everyone's going to hate you if you try to call a fair game. So you're better off probably just picking your favorite color and then just, fixing the game for them to win, I guess. And again, I'm being metaphorical. I'm not actually talking about the game. I'm talking about you as the ref are making decisions on what to support and what not to support and what to do. Really, because I guess whatever you do is a indication of your support for something, right? So I guess if I eat a chocolate bar, I'm all of a sudden supporting big chocolate or something. I mean, I don't fucking know. I feel like there's consequence to everything. I don't really agree with the sense that everything has social consequence. I think some things should just be void of all that, and it ain't that serious. Which is the easy way to rile somebody up that really cares about something. It ain't that serious, Anyway, everyone hates the ref, so if you're the ref in your world, so half people are going to hate you, at least, if not everyone. So you can either choose to cater to some people and just have somebody like you until your team loses, and then they'll still hate you. They'll find a way to blame it on you for something. Because even if the ref gives you every call and you guys just blow the game, you're still going to hate the ref. It's still the ref's fault, right? When has it not been the ref's fault? Or the ump, or whatever sports you want to. This could be any sport. It doesn't matter. Like, you're always going to be hated. It doesn't really matter. Someone's always going to have a problem with what you're doing. It's not like, I'm not saying most people are on the side of these angry soccer moms or something. But I'm saying the extremes. So the people that are out kind of for blood to yell, they're the outspoken ones that are mad about everything, or they're always going to be mad at you for something, right? It's not like it's impossible to tiptoe through everything, not pissing anyone off, being like completely void of some angry soccer mom metaphorically yelling at you. So it's best to just kind of pretend like you're playing your own fucking game, or just call it the way you want and call it the way you see it. And if someone's mad, go fuck yourself. I don't care. I'm the ref. So I'll throw you out in the parking lot, really. So that's the way I think about that. It's like, we should change the rules so these refs can't. No, fuck you. I'm the ref. Get out of here. I'm going to call a game. I thought it was a foul. Your kid sucks. Whatever. I don't know. And I stole your oranges out of your cooler, so go fuck yourself. Alright, enough about refs. Everyone hates the ref. Easy punching bag, though. Everyone likes that. It's easy to hate on somebody or something. One thing I think is an interesting topic of discussion is I'm not going to say the right of an artist to be separated from their art, but the premise of separating art from the artist, right? And I guess if I had to answer black and white, I would say I would err on the side of separating art from the artist. So if there's like a song or something, whatever artist that I like, or I'm not going to disclose all that in detail, but, my artist, maybe let's say I like Drake or something, and then Drake goes out and shoots somebody. So now, because I like Drake's music, does that mean I'm a proponent of murder? Like, no, obviously not, or whatever it is. So with that pretty elementary example, it's pretty easy to see why you should separate art from the artist. And I think the biggest, it isn't, in modern times that becomes kind of a stupid example. It's redundant, obviously. Like, you're not, just because you've listened to Drake before doesn't make you somebody that's going around and shoot people. But I think the hard thing that people separate this is historical lines. So let's say an old artist was the old version of Drake made these bangers of songs or something that were locked away in these dust cabins or something. I don't know. And it turned out the guy was a slave owner and was terrible or something. I don't know. You can make whatever story was terrible, and he was a white supremacist or a Nazi or something. But he made these bangers of songs, And it's like, oh, well, he made good songs. I liked all his music. It doesn't imply anything about me just because I like the songs, right? And it's like, well, there's subliminal messaging about and if I liked a song that said I want to run around and shoot people, or I'm a Nazi or something, was like the title of the song, maybe you have an argument there, but ultimately, generally the subject matter of the song, and whatever art it is, so whether it's a painting or something, is so far removed from whatever else they might have represented in their lifetime that you have to separate the art from the artist. You can't assign any kind of blanket value, or I don't know. You can't just assume that everything just because this person was a Nazi or something, everything this person did was in favor of Nazism or something, right? Whatever that might represent in like a song form. So, in that sense, especially historically, I still think it's valid to separate the art from the artist. I think it. So even with modern artists that do something ridiculous, or historical artists that have done something ridiculous, I don't know. Da Vinci probably did something unsavory in his time, right? Some girl comes out now and accuses him of sexual assault. Now I have to throw out all the all the paintings of Leonardo, of fucking Mona Lisa, and I'm obviously kind of drawing these ridiculous conclusions, and it has a pretty clear political leaning in that sense. But in a very basic way, I suppose I agree with the party that coincides with the fact that art should be separated from the artist. So regardless whether it's music or it's painting or whatever, unless it's directly representative of something, if it's some slave owner, it's a painting of, I don't know, some guy punching a black guy or something, and it's like, oh, it's my favorite painting. I might have some questions, right? So I'm not saying that way, but if it's the song is about biscuits or something, and I love biscuits, that has nothing to do with the fact that the guy was a douchebag. I don't care if he's a loser. The song was about biscuits, so I enjoy biscuits. Yeah, you could probably draw some parallel between biscuits and whatever terrible thing he did, but the song's about biscuits. I like biscuits. I like the song. I'm gonna listen to the fucking song, or look at the painting or whatever it is. So you can't automatically assume that one certain unsavory value can be assigned to all of the art that an artist in whatever form has produced in their entire life. So I see it mostly in the guise of historical, so these historical artists that may have represented something poorly. So it's like, let's say, okay, I hate to use a Hitler example again, but didn't he fail art school or something? I think he did. Let's say there's a beautiful piece of art that comes out. Turns out art school fucked up. Should have kept Hitler in there because he's a wizard with the paintbrush or whatever. Oh shit, my fucking ass. The painting comes out. It's beautiful, right? I buy it and I staple it to my bathroom or whatever. I don't even know what people do with art in their homes. Turns out, dude, that Hitler drew that. And I'm like, I go, oh well, okay, I don't care. It's a cool painting. I liked it. It doesn't. I wouldn't have known that Hitler had painted it because there's not like it's not a painting of him, right, or a swastika, right? So it's like it's not like I knew that. I mean, it's a painting of like a tree in a house. I don't know. It seems pretty. Anyone could have painted this. It could have been me. It's just a good painting, so I'm gonna enjoy it because I'm gonna keep it in my bathroom. It's like, well, now you're a supporter of Hitler. Like in that example, it seems obvious to me that you have to separate art from the artist. So I don't know. I could continue with examples to prove my point. That's not the point of me doing that. So I don't know if there's a decent counterexample. I'd love to listen to it. I guess, like I said, the only caveat being if whatever the art represents is directly representative of an unsavory value or event that the person was a part of, then I can understand why disassociating from that particular art might be useful. But then I'd question why it'd even be something I'd like in the first place, right? I wouldn't have bought the painting if it was a painting of Hitler, because I don't want to staple that in my urinal or whatever. I don't know. So I would not have hung it up in the first place. But it's because the painting has nothing to do with what he stood for. It's a cool painting, so I wanted it. Doesn't mean I'm a Nazi, So I don't know. It's interesting that it's a interesting debate. I would be curious to hear what other. I'm not even sure what the other side of the argument is. I don't know. It seems kind of. I'm not really sure what other arguments you'd have again, of why no matter what the artist did, it should be removed. So like, I don't know, you see movies with actors who've done bad things. Their movies are not, it's unless it's a movie about what the bad, like, you know, if it says some actor sexually assaults somebody, unless the movie's a movie about the sexual assault, then I don't see the issue in like going to watch a movie, because this person's a good actor, and I have enjoyed whatever. You know, it's not like I'm supporting his. I said his, assuming it's a man, of course. Supporting their actions to sexually assault somebody. That's obviously not. I'm just watching the movie. So I don't know. It's an interesting topic of discussion. Yeah. So, I guess I was thinking about another thing on the guise of kind of taking life for a ride and living a psychologically rich life, as I've defined it, as something just kind of having a variety of experiences, rolling with the punches, kind of, I don't know. So it has this question about, because I think a lot of people now, or less people because of the deflated job market and income stagnation and high inflation, stuff like that. People are having less kids, so it kind of always begs the question. It's like, oh, no, do you want to have kids? I suppose some people are against having kids, or for whatever reason. I don't know, but I was kind of thinking about a cost-benefit analysis of having kids. It's obviously like if you're after, again, kind of talking about the happiness versus like this greater meaning oriented people. If you're after just like your happiness, why would you ever want to have kids? It doesn't make any sense. Because like even really your long-term happiness, it's a satisfaction game. It's a higher meaning type of game, having kids. Because again, you're rolling the odds. What if you no offense to the kid, what if you have a dud, right? I mean, it happens. Some kids are fuck-ups, and you make an argument that a lot of them are fuck-ups, and kids are just what's left of their parents. So if your parents is a good person, you must be what's left. As a joke, but so I don't. It doesn't make any. It's not like you're guaranteed to have this amazing kid. You're just you're rolling the dice. So that's part of it. And it's just like such a headache for 18 years, 20 years, or however long. All that money down the drain too. If you're someone that's gonna use your money to, make yourself happy, whatever that means, you're spending a lot of it on this, this little booger shooting goblin that's gonna run around and, be a nuisance for everyone, and break all your stuff, and give you a wine addiction or something. So it doesn't really make that much sense to have kids if you're pursuing that. So I guess it's a greater satisfaction play. And I suppose in the guise of a psychologically rich life, it's also an interesting play because it's, kids are kind of the definition of a wild ride. So if that's kind of if your mantra, it's like kind of taking life for a wild ride. Kids in a lot of ways embody that because, again, you don't really know what you're going to get. There's a level of unpredictability with having kids that rivals the unpredictability of life and its up and downs, and especially if life has been consistent and kind of normal for a while, it then makes sense to kind of be itching for some unpredictability, which I think kids give. So I see some people that I could see a scenario. I'm not saying I know a bunch of people. I could see a scenario where their life's pretty stagnant for a few years, and it's like, nothing's really happening. It's that interesting. Okay, I want to have kids because it'll be something interesting, right? Something to do, I guess. Something to worry about. Something to, to stress about and spend my money on. That's, not a dog or something. So in that way, it also makes sense, I guess, in kind of having a list, right? And I guess if I'm going to subscribe to that answer, then I kind of have to say that, yeah, I could see myself wanting kids at some point. Probably not anytime soon, just because there's plenty of interesting stuff going on with my life right now. It's not like I've hit this stagnant period where it's like, bleh, nothing's happening. I need stimulation, so I'm gonna have a kid. But but it kind of a lot of different ways other than this very happiness oriented mindset does it make sense. So it kind of makes sense under the greater purpose where you're kind of wanting to, further the human, give your kids a chance to finish what you couldn't and whatever you were passionate about so they could be the next scuba diving patron to, tromp around the world and promote scuba diving. And, kind of further the human species and the genetic variance that leads to innovation or something. I don't know. You can make all kinds of arguments on that higher meaning front. But if you're like, after maximizing your happiness, it is kind of, I see it as kind of a boneheaded play to have kids, and then, at least in that setting. So I don't know. That's just my input. So I could certainly see both sides of it. I suppose if you're someone that just doesn't care and just wants wants to be happy and do things that they want to do, and I guess in some ways you could pin it as selfish. But again, I don't think being selfish is always inherently a bad thing, right? There are plenty of times and instances where being selfish is in your best interest, especially when you're young. Again, like I've said it before, I think younger people who have a lot more to lose in terms of time and energy, because they're, that kind of decreases with time. I think it's okay to act in ways that are seen as selfish and, aren't really always utilitarian and, being better for everyone. So, I don't know. I could kind of see that, that side of the argument. So, I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah. So next I want to talk about this, hold on, let me get a sip of liquid here. It's water. It's not anything crazy. So I guess talking a little bit about, like predestination theory, like do we have free will, which is always an interesting subject. Because if we assume that, you don't have free will, then to me it always just begs the question, well then what are you even living for? So then just, then end it. Oh, you're always going to end it, right? Type of thing. So then to me there's really no point in asking any more questions if we no longer have free will, because then it's all priced into the market to put it in that way. So it's kind of a pointless question to answer no with. You kind of, in order to have any kind of motivation to do anything, you need to answer yes. And I suppose the argument, I'm not saying the argument against free will is wrong. I mean, I think it's, in a lot of ways, it could be equally as valid. I'm not up to date with exactly what, the best argument or the most up-to-date argument or whatever is. But, I do think that saying that free will doesn't exist, then there's really no point to anything. And I don't know. Our capacity to be able to answer the question with yes is either undying evidence for free will not existing, or is evidence of our free will to indicate that it does. Either way, it's paradoxical in a lot of ways, because I think about answering yes or answering no, to that there are implications beyond just the yes or no, right? So even just saying, do I have free will? No. It's like, okay, well, did I have free will to answer that question how I truly believed it, or was that just whatever, whatever answer I was going to say no matter what? So I don't know, it brings in a lot of these difficult questions that, even for me, who's very self-proclaimed and kind of unapologetic abstract thinker, it becomes too wishy-washy, too nebulous for me, which I realize is weird and out of character, because generally most of what I talk about is nebulous and wishy-washy. But saying we have no free will is truly saying that is taking like the ultimate nihilistic approach, like a cosmic nihilist approach, where nothing you do will ever matter. Doesn't. You can just none of it means anything. So just do nothing or do everything. It doesn't matter. Who cares? So it's kind of a, I don't know. It seems like a very unproductive answer to give to that. So it's not that it's right or wrong, because I think we're always after this right or wrong naturally. But to say either right or wrong or equally is ignorant, but ultimately they're all like answering we don't have free will is, I don't know, then you're kind of subscribing to a pretty dangerous mentality that nothing means anything, and you could just whatever you're going to do anyway, right? And so there's no control you'd ever have over anything. So then it kind of brings into the same question of nothing's ever your fault because you were going to do it anyway. It's predetermined, right? So there's no kind of there's no amount of change that you could do. Any change you were going to do was already priced in. You were going to change. That was predetermined. And it just really becomes, you'd be better off believing that you can change in whatever sense that would be, and the changes aren't. It allows you to take a more active approach, right? Versus subscribing to predestination would say that take a pacifist approach. All the change is going to come because you'll either decide to change or you won't, and that's out of your control. I think answering yes is exhibiting a certain amount of control and saying, yes, I'm actively going to look out to change. And whether you were going to or not, whether it was predetermined or not, you're taking a more active approach to it, which I think is an idea that I like more than the alternative, being this like very laissez-faire, like, oh, it doesn't matter what I say I'm going to do or I'm going to do. It's all going to happen anyway. It doesn't matter. That seems like a pretty lazy response, and a lazy, non-action oriented thing. Lazy in the sense that it's non-action oriented. So, and generally people, tend to, I guess, take less action than I think they should. So people are more pacifist. They tend to be less active on things. And that's just active in doing anything. So if you decide you want to, be a baker or something, like, do it. Like, go practice baking or do whatever. I mean, like actually doing it versus just saying, oh, well, if it was meant to be, it's meant to be. It's like, sometimes whether it actually happens this way or not, the perception should be, I think, that you're going to kind of bend it to work. Like, no, I'm going to be the best baker ever because I'm going to become the best baker ever. Not that I was born the best baker ever, or I'm the most gifted whatever. No, I'm going to control reality and say that I'm become the best baker there ever existed or something. And to me, that mentality is a lot more conducive to, I don't know, just better things than this kind of like, well, I wasn't meant to be the best baker ever, right? And I'm not saying that you can or it's possible to become the best baker ever just because you said it is. But ultimately, it allows you to try and to, again, kind of take action versus doing nothing, which I am always on the side of taking action versus doing nothing. So that's kind of what I think on that. But yeah. So that's it's an interesting thing. So. Oh, let's see. So something else I heard that I thought was interesting, that somebody said, and again, citing it I think is pointless. They said life is all about the big celebrations. Sorry, I was trying to throw the Ender Pearl in focus. Life's all about big celebrations, right? So I don't know, family gatherings, if you're someone that's very closely oriented with family type life, or whether it's gatherings of you and another group. So if you're a bunch of Reddit trolls getting together in an online forum, it's about that big gathering, right? And I mean, in a lot of ways, that's a pretty blanket, tough statement to defend, that it's, from a very logical standpoint. But thinking about it emotionally, anecdotally, life does seem to be strung together by a series of larger events, right? So and so's wedding, right? I don't know if some people that are religious, kind of go by baptisms or confirmations. Graduations are another big thing, right? Those are big events that happen. Having your kid is another big event, right? So these big events that, whether family or friends or people come to them or not, or whatever it is, that's ultimately what kind of strings together the timeline of your life. So in that sense, I do think it makes a lot of sense, especially if you're gonna have to string together a chronological kind of, I don't know, list of your life's events. You're gonna string together the big events, right? When you graduated from so and so, when you had your kids or whatever, and it is about the big events. Yeah, I don't know. I just came back from a big event. It was a family-oriented one, so there was a lot of family there. I kind of go from having these very abstract conversations with myself to having kind of the epitome of small talk with relatives, which most people find, they find brutal, right? Oh my God, I have to talk to Aunt Lisa or something, or whatever your aunt's name is. Everyone's got one. Oh my God, it's absolutely brutal. And again, it is kind of the epitome of small talk. You're talking about God knows what. Oh, how's school? Or how's this? And, oh, so-and-so had a baby. And then, you kind of exchange questions. And as boring as that might sound, there's a certain, at least to me, there's a certain appreciation I have for it. And it's like, yeah, nothing that we're ever, we're talking about as any meaning beyond, like, the most, like, I don't care, right? You don't care how I'm doing in school. I don't care about your baby or whatever. Whatever. I don't care about your baby. But it's easy just kind of to hate small talk and to go, hide upstairs in your room like a hermit or something. Which, not to say I've never done before, because I have, but I really tried to take a more active approach to appreciating, the fact that a lot of these family members have come from a long ways to be here. I had to travel away to go to this event. And, regardless of how pointless that a lot of this stuff is, there's still people that have, especially even from family, like your Aunt Lisa, or whoever you're going to, whatever. I don't even have an Aunt Lisa. I'm just saying most people feel like they have an Aunt Lisa somewhere. Or an Uncle Bill, or everyone's got an Uncle Bill, or Uncle Steve, or something. Whatever your family's name is. And if you don't have any family, I'm sorry. So this is not going to apply that well to you. But they've kind of been there from those are your true day ones, right? You were one of the big events in their kind of chronological thing, at least to a fair number of them. It's like, oh, I remember the last time I was here was when you were born, or something, something like that. And you're just kind of like, bleh, oh my God, I don't care. Like, I don't even remember that. Why would it matter? But, it's, from their perspective, it's they've kind of watched somebody grow up, a kind of plant grow, right? And whether they take any responsibility for your successes or failures or not, doesn't really matter. They probably shouldn't deserve to, because, they wouldn't take responsibility for your failure, so they shouldn't take responsibility for your success. But I try to take a more active approach in appreciating that these people have been around, even just whether they've done anything or not. Whether they've just always been just a person there, right? Uncle Steve has just been this person who's just there. It's not like he did all your schoolwork for you or whatever, or he taught you how to drive a car or something. Some of them may not have done anything that's particularly constructive to you. They've just been people you've just kind of shared your life, some of your stuff with, and have shared these big events with. And it's not like beyond that, they're no different than a stranger, really. But the simple fact that people, any number of people, whether you have a lot or a few, have been around for an extended period of time, To me, it kind of provides a lot more support and context to that, the small talk, right? So it's not, I don't equate it in the same way I would equate small talk with a complete stranger, right? So if somebody asked me, if my Aunt Lisa asked me about, how's school, or how's your kid, or whatever, to me that question is much different than if a complete stranger asked that, right? Or someone that I just met, right? I don't know this person. This person hasn't been around. There's a certain amount of trust that just comes with time. Oh no, I turned on sticky keys by accident. But yeah, there's a certain amount of trust that someone that's been around for a while is have. So I don't know, maybe there's this direct relationship between time and trust, right? The longer you know somebody, the more innately you trust them, which I think is accurate. Well, not really accurate in the sense. I think it's accurate in the sense that that's the way people trust people. Is just, if you've known them for 20 years, you're going to trust them a lot more than if you've known them for 2 years. But do I think it's a foolproof metric of trust? Like, no, but what is, right? There's not really a more, it's really difficult to kind of quantify some level of trust. I think time is the most straightforward way we could do it. So it tends to be what people do, is they just kind of, I've known this person for 30 years, I trust them. I mean, maybe it's not proportional. I know I trust them twice as much, as someone I know in 15. But even just the fact that you've known them for that period of time, you gives them a certain amount of trust. Again, there's not really I'm not sure if there is a better metric for trust. I mean, I'm sure you could define like, if they saved your life or something, if they pulled you out of a burning building, right? You probably going to trust them to some extent, regardless of how long you've known them or something, right? So unless you're metaphorical nuts around the chopping block and you have somebody whose life is in your hands and they choose to spare you or whatever it is, beyond extreme circumstances like that, generally speaking, it's hard to quantify trust in a meaningful way. So time ends up being just kind of our de facto thing, which I don't think is a bad thing. I just think it's an interesting thought that our trust is maybe not proportional to time. Maybe it's proportional to time spent, not total time known, but the time you've spent with somebody. So if you've spent every living, breathing, waking hour with somebody for 2 years, and then maybe another person who you've kind of known on and off for 10 years, you might end up trusting the person you've spent the more total amount of time with. You might trust them more. Which again, I think makes sense. Just, because people change with that period of time, especially if you don't spend that much time with them, that trust hasn't been, continually built on. I don't know. It's interesting relationship between time, trust, and like total time and the time spent with the person or whatever. I don't know. Whatever. I'm gonna pinch it off here. So, hope you enjoyed it. A little bit over the place this time. I got lost in the frickin'. I need to set up some directions in here, but because I don't know where the hell I'm going. I'm just trying to find gravel. But anyway, hope you enjoyed. I will be back for more next time, and peace out.